Welcome back, everybody. Today's deep dive is all about Michelle Obama's The Light We Carry.
Oh, an excellent choice.
It's more than a memoir, though, right? It's almost like she's giving us a toolkit for dealing with uncertainty.
Right. Exactly. And for building resilience too, I think.
For sure. That's a big part of it. And I'm excited to dive in because, honestly, I found her insights so relatable,
Oh, for sure.
even if you know you haven't, like, walked in her shoes, so to speak.
Yeah. I think what's really fascinating is how she uses her personal stories to sort of illustrate these broader themes. It's
Oh,
not
right. That.
just about like the lessons she's learned, but the way those lessons came about. And I think the story about her father and his MS is a great example.
Okay, so she's growing up with a father who faces these very real physical challenges.
Right.
How does that specifically shape her worldview?
Well, think about it. Like from a young age, she's kind of attuned to a level of difficulty that I think a lot of people might not even notice. And she talks about this kind of unspoken pact in her family to carry on with laughter,
Oh,
even when her dad would, fall,
oh
which,
gosh.
obviously wasn't, a funny thing. But it wasn't about ignoring the hardship, right? It was about finding a way to kind of cope and keep moving forward.
Right. It's like they almost developed like an extra sense, a
Yeah.
radar for potential obstacles.
Exactly. And that's where that whole metaphor of counting steps comes in.
Uh-huh.
It's about being constantly aware of your surroundings, calculating risks, anticipating challenges that I think other people just take for granted.
It's like you always have to think two steps ahead.
Exactly, just to navigate the world,
Wow.
you know? And
Yeah.
and that was a reality that she and her family lived with.
So counting steps isn't just about literal steps.
Mhm.
It's about like being aware of the extra effort, the vigilance required when you face these kinds of challenges.
Precisely. And it's not just about physical limitations either, right? I mean, think about how this idea of differentness applies to, anyone who feels like an outsider,
Right. Yeah.
whether it's because of their background, their beliefs, their identity. There's this sense of always having to work harder to be more careful to prove yourself.
It makes you wonder how that awareness shaped her as a person, as a leader.
Right.
I mean, she becomes first lady, for goodness sake.
Hmm.
Talk about pressure and scrutiny.
Totally. And that's actually where I think, her experience with vulnerability comes in
Okay.
because she talks about feeling incredibly exposed while she was writing and releasing Becoming.
Oh, wow.
Which, think about it. After years of, very carefully guarding her privacy as First Lady, all of a sudden she's laying bare her deepest thoughts and feelings for
Right,
the
yeah.
whole world to judge.
It's like stepping onto a stage with no safety net.
Well,
You are completely vulnerable.
100%. And even with all of her accomplishments, she admits to lying awake the night before the book launch,
Oh, wow.
totally consumed by self-doubt.
Oh, gosh.
And that question, like, am I good enough? It's something I think so many of us can relate to,
Oh, absolutely.
even if we haven't, written a best-selling memoir.
It's amazing how she makes those feelings feel so universal.
It's incredibly disarming, right?
Yeah.
Because here's this woman who, seems to have it all,
Right.
and yet she's grappling with these same insecurities that, we all face. I think it just normalizes the experience of vulnerability, makes it okay to admit that we don't always feel, confident or self-assured.
And it's a good reminder that even the most successful people, have their doubts, have their moments.
Right.
No one is immune to feeling, vulnerable or inadequate at times.
Absolutely. And I think in a way it makes her message even more powerful,
Yeah.
Because if Michelle Obama can admit to feeling these things,
Yeah.
then maybe it's okay for the rest of us to feel them too. Yeah.
She even shares this really endearing story about how Barack helped her through that pre-book launch anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
It's like this little peek behind the curtain of their relationship,
Right.
and it's so relatable.
Totally. He doesn't, dismiss her fears or tell her to just toughen up.
Right.
He just acknowledges that, feeling anxious is natural, especially when you're stepping outside of your comfort zone
Right.
and trying something new and bold.
And sometimes that's all we need, right? It's just that validation from someone we trust,
Right.
just to hear someone say, it's okay to feel this way. You got this.
100%. And that actually leads us to another key theme in the book, which is the power of connection.
Okay.
And she talks about this like overwhelming joy and sense of belonging that she felt during her Becoming book tour,
Yes.
connecting with these massive, diverse crowds.
And she describes it so vividly. You can just feel that warmth and excitement just radiating from the pages.
Totally. Totally. And then she contrasts that with, the isolation and the uncertainty that was brought on by the pandemics.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she's highlighting, how fragile our connections are
Yeah.
and how much we rely on them for our well-being.
It makes you think about how much we took for granted before the pandemic.
Oh, for sure.
Just the simple act of gathering with friends,
Yeah,
going to a concert, hugging a loved one.
exactly. And it wasn't just about, missing those social events, right?
Right.
The pandemic really exposed the deep inequalities in our society, too,
Yeah.
hitting marginalized communities the hardest.
It's like the pandemic became this magnifying glass,
Yes.
revealing all the cracks and the fault lines that were always there,
Right.
but often ignored.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. And she doesn't shy away from those difficult realities. She talks about, the global threat of war,
Yeah.
economic anxieties, the very personal fears that we all face, like, worrying about a child's cough. It's a sobering reminder that, the world is in constant flux and uncertainty is just a part of life.
So if we're living in this world of constant change and uncertainty,
Mm.
how do we even begin to find our footing?
Right.
Where do we go from here?
Well, that's where her toolbox comes in, right?
Huh.
And she's very clear that there's no single formula for overcoming these challenges,
Mhm.
but she does offer this collection of strategies and mindsets that
Yeah.
have helped her navigate difficult times.
Uh-huh.
And she invites us to, explore what might work for us.
It's like she's saying, here's what works for me.
Yes.
Your mileage may vary, but I hope some of these tools can help you too.
Exactly. Exactly. And one of the most important tools, I think, in her toolbox is this ability to identify habits that center us
Right.
versus those that feed our insecurity.
Oh, interesting.
It's about becoming more aware of the things that we're allowing into our lives and how they impact our well-being.
So it's not just about reacting to those external events. It's about choosing how we respond internally.
Precisely. And that actually leads to another, key point, which is the need to adapt and evolve rather than waiting for things to end.
Okay.
And that's where this idea of flux becomes so important.
Wait, flux. I'm not sure I get that one. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. Flux is about embracing the reality that, life is always in motion, always changing.
Uh-huh.
It's like a river, right? It's constantly flowing, never static.
Right.
And so instead of resisting that flow, she encourages us to, learn how to swim with the current, so to speak,
Okay.
to find ways to be comfortable with the unknown.
So instead of asking, when will this end?
Right.
We should be asking ourselves, how do we adapt?
Exactly.
How do we find support within this constant change?
You got it. It's a subtle shift in mindset,
Yeah.
but it's incredibly powerful, and it leads us to one of the book's most beautiful and evocative metaphors, the light we carry.
Ooh, I love that metaphor.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so hopeful. Tell me more about what she means by that.
Well, she describes this inner light as the source of our strength and our self-knowledge, right? It's about recognizing our own value, our unique talents and gifts, and having the confidence to share those with the world.
It's like that spark of resilience that helps us weather the storms.
Yes.
And makes us want to leave the world a little brighter than we found it.
Exactly. And she connects this idea of, recognizing our own light to the power of fostering the light in others.
Oh, I like that.
It's about building communities where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued.
Not just surviving, but thriving together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about moving away from that, me versus you mentality.
Right.
And embracing that we're all in this together spirit.
I love that.
Yeah, and that sense of connection, that collective power, is ultimately what helps us, overcome challenges and create lasting change.
It really is inspiring.
It is. And this concept of the light we carry, it's not about pretending the darkness doesn't exist.
Right.
It's about acknowledging those challenges, the uncertainties, and finding that inner strength to keep going even when things are tough.
Yeah, it's not about putting on those rose-colored glasses. you know?
Right.
It's about that resilience to face reality head on.
Exactly. She's not suggesting that we ignore, the brokenness of the world.
Yes.
She's reminding us that we have the power to make a difference,
Okay.
to bring light into the darkness, to be a source of hope and strength for ourselves and others.
So it's a call to action then, not just kind of a passive acceptance of the way things are.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're not just bystanders in this world.
Right.
We have agency.
Uh-huh.
We have the power to shape our own lives and the lives of those around us.
And one of the ways we can do that is by, paying attention to the stories we tell ourselves
Yes.
and the stories that we tell about others.
Yes. She talks about how the narratives that we create can either empower us or limit us.
Right.
You know, if we're constantly focusing on the negative, on our shortcomings,
Yeah.
on all the things that could go wrong, we're essentially dimming our own light.
It's like we're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
If we believe we're not good enough, then we're less likely to take risks or pursue our dreams or
Exactly.
step into our full potential.
Precisely. And then on the flip side, if we focus on our strengths, our accomplishments, the times we've overcome adversity, we're fueling that inner light.
Right.
We're giving ourselves that confidence to keep moving forward.
It's a reminder that we have a choice in how we frame our experiences.
Yes.
You can choose to dwell on the negative, or we can choose to find the lessons.
Right.
You know, the growth, the glimmers of hope.
Exactly. And that's where I think this idea of going high comes in.
Oh, yeah.
It's something, she's talked about before, but I think in this book, she really dives deep into what it means to, like, embody that principle in our daily lives.
You know, that resonates with me so much, especially in today's world,
Oh, totally.
where it's so easy to get pulled into negativity and conflict.
Yeah.
Like everywhere you turn, there's just outrage and division.
Exactly. And she acknowledges that it's not easy to go high all the time.
Right.
There are times when we want to lash out.
Of course.
We want to retaliate.
Yeah.
We want to give in to that anger or frustration.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when we're dealing with people who just seem determined to bring us down.
Yes.
Or, who thrive on that negativity.
Exactly. But she reminds us that going high isn't about them.
Okay.
It's about us.
Mm-hmm.
It's about staying true to ourselves and our values, even when it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Even when we'd rather just, give in to that temptation to fight fire with fire.
It's about choosing the kind of person we want to be in the world.
Yes.
Regardless of how other people are behaving.
Right. It's about taking the higher ground, not for their sake, but for our own.
Right.
It's about preserving our own integrity.
Right.
Our own peace of mind.
I'm curious, what does she have to say about actually putting that into practice?
Yeah.
Because it's a great concept, but how do we actually go high when we're faced with difficult people or situations?
Right. Well, she offers some really practical advice.
Okay.
One thing she emphasizes is the importance of self-care.
Okay.
And it's not just about, indulging in bubble baths and face masks.
Right.
Although those can be nice too. It's about taking care of our physical, emotional, and mental well-being.
So making sure we're getting enough sleep, eating nourishing food, moving our bodies, connecting with things that bring us joy.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
We need to take care of ourselves so that we have the energy and resilience to show up for others,
Yeah.
to go high when we're being tested.
And she also talks about the importance of finding our kitchen table, right?
Yes.
What exactly does she mean by that?
It's a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah.
Think about the kitchen table. It's a place where, families and friends gather to share meals, to have conversations, to laugh, to cry, to support each other.
Right.
It's a place of warmth, connection, and belonging.
It's about finding our tribe.
Yes.
Those people who get us, who love us unconditionally,
Exactly.
who support us through thick and thin.
Exactly. And she emphasizes that our kitchen table doesn't have to be limited to, our immediate family or friends.
Right.
It can include mentors, colleagues, community groups, online communities,
Right.
anyone who makes us feel seen and valued.
It's about expanding that circle of support,
Yes.
recognizing that we don't have to go through life's challenges alone.
Right. We all need that sense of belonging,
Yeah.
that feeling that we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely.
And in addition to self-care and finding our kitchen table,
Uh-huh.
she also talks about the importance of finding our voice,
Okay.
of speaking up for ourselves
Right.
and for what we believe in, even when it's scary.
So finding that courage to speak our truth, even when we're afraid of being judged or rejected.
Yes. And she acknowledges that finding our voice can be a process.
Right.
It takes time to develop that confidence to overcome those fears.
It makes me think about her own journey,
Right.
She didn't just suddenly become this powerful, eloquent speaker.
Exactly.
She had to work at it.
Right.
She had to overcome her own insecurities and fears
Right.
in order to step into her power
Yeah.
and use her platform to make a difference.
Exactly. And she reminds us that our voices matter.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we don't feel like we have all the answers or the perfect words,
Yeah.
our experiences, our perspectives, our stories have value.
Right.
And when we share them authentically,
Yeah.
we create space for others to do the same.
It's about building a world where everyone feels empowered to speak their truths.
Yes.
And that's a world I want to live in.
Me too. And you know what's really inspiring about Michelle Obama's message
Yeah.
is that it's not just about individual resilience. It's about collective action.
Right. She's calling on all of us to use our light, our voices, our actions to create a more just and equitable world.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected,
Yes.
that our individual well-being is tied to the well-being of our communities and our planet.
It's about understanding that we're all in this together.
Yes.
And that we all have a role to play in creating a better future.
And and she reminds us that even small acts of kindness, compassion, and courage can have a wimple effect.
Right.
When we choose to shine our light, we inspire others to do the same.
So it's not just about those grand gestures or heroic acts.
Right.
It's about those everyday moments of connection and compassion
Exactly.
that it can make a real difference in the lives of others.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the power we each have to create positive change in the world. One interaction, one conversation, one act of kindness at a time.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive into the light we carry,
Definitely.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, what Michelle Obama has to say about how we can actually put these ideas into practice. How do we take all this inspiration and turn it into tangible action in our own lives?
You hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
It's about how do we bridge that gap between inspiration and action. And Michelle Obama, she doesn't just leave us hanging with these kind of lofty ideas, She provides some concrete steps that we can take.
Okay.
And one thing she really emphasizes is recognizing the power we each have as storytellers.
Ooh, that's intriguing. What does she mean by that?
Well, she talks about how the stories we tell ourselves,
Yeah.
the stories that we share with others, the stories we choose to believe about the world,
Right.
they have a profound impact on our lives
Yeah.
and the lives of those around us.
So it's not just about listening to stories.
Yeah.
It's about being conscious creators of our own narratives.
Precisely.
Yeah.
She encourages us to, challenge those dominant narratives, right? The ones that tell us who we are, what we're capable of, what's possible.
Right. She reminds us that we have the power to create our own stories,
Yeah.
to redefine what it means to be successful, to be powerful, to be happy.
It's about reclaiming our narratives, taking ownership of our stories.
Yes.
And using them to empower ourselves and others.
You got it. And she also talks about the importance of being mindful of the stories that we consume,
Okay.
to be critical of those messages that we're just bombarded with constantly.
Right.
To seek out stories that, inspire us, that challenge us,
Yeah.
that expand our understanding of the world.
It's like being a curator of our own mental diet, right?
Yeah.
Making sure we're feeding our minds with nourishing and thought-provoking stories.
Exactly. And what's really powerful about this whole concept of storytelling?
What's that?
It's not just about, individual transformation.
Right.
It's about changing the world, one story at a time.
It's about recognizing that our stories have the power to connect us, to inspire us, to heal us, to create a more just and equitable world for all. Well said. And one of the things that really struck me as I was reflecting on the light we carry
Yeah.
is how Michelle Obama manages to weave together these personal anecdotes,
Yeah.
these relatable experiences, right?
Uh-huh.
With these profound insights about, human nature and the state of the world.
It's like she's inviting us into her living room for a heart-to-heart.
Yes.
You feel like you're getting to know her on a personal level,
Right.
but you're also gaining this incredible wisdom and perspective.
Exactly. It's that combination of vulnerability and insight
Yeah.
that makes her message so compelling.
Right.
She's not afraid to share her own struggles, her own moments of doubt and uncertainty.
Yeah.
And in doing so, she makes us feel less alone.
Right. Less alone in our own journeys.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us?
Yeah.
The everyday folks trying to navigate our own, messy, complicated lives.
Well, I think, Michelle Obama's message is ultimately one of hope and empowerment. She's reminding us that we have more power than we realize.
Yeah.
We have the power to choose how we respond to challenges. We have the power to cultivate our inner light.
Right.
We have the power to connect with others and build those supportive communities.
Yeah.
And we have the power to use our voices to create positive change in the world.
It's about recognizing that we're not just victims of circumstance.
Right.
We have agency. We have the power to shape our own lives.
Beautifully put. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the light we carry,
Yeah.
I'd love to leave you with a question to ponder. What is one small step you can take today to cultivate your own inner light? and to share that light with the world.
That's a great question to reflect on. Thanks for joining us on this insightful journey. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.